Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Ravi. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Girari Radha Girari Radhe. Prabhupada 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 Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Thank you, I needed that. Jayam Vishpad Paramahamsa Prabhajikacharya Shiltadrasata Shishimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki. ISKCON founder Charya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki. Gaur Premanande. Our glories to the assembled devotees. Our glories to the assembled devotees. Our glories to the assembled devotees. Our glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastai Badale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Naman. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaur Vani Vacharne Navishesha Srimali Prasatya Distarne. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're getting to hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 29, Talks between Narada and King Prachinabarhi. Text 29. Kvachit pumam, kvachit cha stri, kvachit pumam, kvachit cha stri, kvachin nabayam andadi, kvachin nobayan andadi, devo manusyas tiryag va, devo manusyas tiryag va, yata karma gunam bhava, yata karma gunam bhava, kvachit pumam kvachit shastri, kvachin nobayam andadi, deva manusya tiryagva, yata karma gunam bhava, kvachit pumam kvachit shastri, kvachin nobayam andadi, devo manusyastir yagva, yata karma gunam bhava, kvachit pumam kvachit chastri, kvachin nobayam andadi, devo manusyastir yagva, yata karma gunam bhava, karma gunam bhava, kvachit pumam kvachit chastri, kvachit nobayam andadi, devo manusyastir yagva, yata karma gunam bhava, kvachit, sometimes, pumam, male, kvachit, sometimes, cha, also, stri, female, kvachit, sometimes, na, not, ubiyam, both, and blind, di, he whose intelligence, deva, demigod, manusya, human being, tiryak, animal, bird, beast, va, or, yata, according to, karma, of activities, gunam, the qualities, bhava, birth. Translation. Covered by the mode of ignorance in material nature, living entity is sometimes a male, sometimes a female, sometimes a eunuch, sometimes a human being, sometimes a demigod, sometimes a bird, an animal, and so on. This way he's wandering within the material world. His acceptance of different types of bodies is brought about by his activities under the influence of the modes of nature. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Actually, living entity is part and parcel of the Lord. Therefore, he's spiritual in quality. The living entity is never material. And his material conception is simply a mistake due to forgetfulness. He's as brilliant as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Both the sun and the sunshine are very brilliant. The Lord's like the full shining sun, and the living entities are like the small particles of that sun, which constitute the all-pervasive sunshine. When these small particles are covered by the cloud of Maya, they lose their shining capacity. When the cloud of Maya is gone, the particles again become brilliant and shining. Soon as the living entity is covered by the ignorance of Maya or darkness, he cannot understand his relationship with the Supreme God. Somehow or other, if he comes before the Lord, he can see himself as shining as the Supreme Lord, although he's not as extensive as the Lord. Because the living entity desires to imitate the Supreme Lord, he's covered by Maya. We cannot imitate the Lord, nor can we become the Supreme Enjoyer. This is not possible. And when we think it is, we become conditioned by Maya. Thus, the engagement of the living entity under the clutches of Maya is brought about by forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Lord. Under the influence of Maya, the living entity becomes exactly like a person haunted by a ghost. Not a pretty picture. Such a person speaks all kinds of nonsense. When the living entity is covered by the influence of Maya, he becomes a so-called scientist, philosopher, politician, or socialist, and at every moment presents different plans for the benefit of human society. All these plans are ultimately failures because they're illusory. In this way, the living entity forgets his position as an eternal servant of the Lord. He instead becomes a servant of Maya. In any case, he remains a servant. It is his misfortune that by forgetting his real contact with the Supreme Lord, he becomes a servant of Maya. As servant of Maya, he sometimes becomes a king, sometimes an ordinary citizen, sometimes a brahmana, a shudra, and so on. Sometimes he's a happy man, sometimes a prosperous man, sometimes a small insect. Sometimes he's in heaven, sometimes in hell. Sometimes he's a demigod, sometimes he's a demon. Sometimes he's a servant, and sometimes he's a master. In this way, the living entity wanders all over the universe. Only when he comes in contact with the bona fide spiritual master can he understand his real constitutional position. He then becomes disgusted with material existence. At that time, in full Krishna consciousness, he regrets his past experiences in material existence. This regret is very beneficial because it purifies the living entity of material conditional life. He then prays to the Lord to engage in his service, and at that time, Krishna grants liberation from the clutches of Maya. Lord Krishna explains this in Bhagavad Gita 7:14. All together now. Daivayesha mayi mama maya dharatya mameva ye prapadyante mayame tam tarantite. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. End quote. Only by the grace of Krishna can one get out of the clutches of Maya. It's not possible to get out by mental speculation or other activities. When the living entity understands his real position by the grace of Krishna, he keeps himself always fit in Krishna consciousness and acts accordingly. Then he gradually becomes completely free from the clutches of Maya. When he's strong in Krishna consciousness, Maya cannot touch him. In this way, in the association of Krishna conscious devotees, the living entity can get free from the contamination of material existence. In this connection, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Tate Krishna bhaje kare gurura sevana maya jale chute paya krishnera charana. In the Krishna conscious state, the living entity engages in devotional service under the directions of the spiritual master. In this way, he gets out of the clutches of Maya and takes shelter under the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 22:25. Could we please chant? Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shiva Shakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhana Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kapatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Could we chant one more mantra for Maharaj? I hear he's back in the throes of the suffering of the digestion or lack of it and all that comes with it. Just one prayerful Maha mantra for Maharaj's quick recovery. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Tapas Prabhu, if you don't mind, today's thoughts will be classed or categorized around, it's all a dream. Wake up. It's all a dream. Wake up. How many of us want to go back home, back to Godhead? It's unanimous. Passed. It's not through mental speculation, fruitive activities, pious credits, mystic yoga. None of these processes will get us back to Krishna Loka. None of them. The closest we hear is Durvasa Muni getting to the outer gate, the seventh of the walls, the outside wall of Vaikuntha, by his mystic powers. But no one gets to Vrindavan by anything other than unalloyed, pure, loving devotional service. In the Brahma Samhita it said that there are 10 spears. It's like these days we've got satellites and anti-missile rockets and we got all this stuff going on. Krishna Loka, it's described, they're spears in all 10 directions. North, south, east, west, in between in all the directions, up and down. Nobody sneaks in. You can't bluff or cheat your way back home, back to Godhead. Only by the mercy of Krishna and the mercy of his devotees do we have any hope of overcoming Maya, becoming fixed and pure, what to speak of loving, developing loving devotion to Krishna and going back to Godhead. Our only hope, mercy. And the funny thing is, our natural state of consciousness is Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness. It really means prema bhakti, loving bhakti. And bhakti means devotional service. The love is manifest through the symptoms of service. And we're so fortunate because this sublime process is such that the process is the same as the goal. So by engaging these covered material senses and mind under the direction of Guru, in the service of Guru, Vaishnavas, and Krishna, we can reawaken our pure consciousness. We can develop, by their mercy, our love for the Lord. What is it? What's the full part of the Jivera Srupoi Nityara Krishna Das? The next part of the Bengali? Which means that We are eternally the servant of Krishna. His part and parcel. We are his Tatashta Shakti, marginal but superior energy of the Lord. And there lies in the good news and the bad news. Because we are marginal and have the qualities and tiny quantity of Krishna, we have independence. And Krishna loves nothing more than when his tiny jivas surrender their independence in his service. He loves it. He loves us. He's so desirous of it that he, as the super soul, sticks with us since time immemorial. Nitya Bhada. No one can trace out when we came to this material energy, came under its control. No one. Only Krishna knows. Past, present, future, all living entities. But us, we haven't a clue. So we say, Nitya Bhada. It was a long, 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 long time ago. The bad news is, having misused the independence, we've come to this rotten material world. Heard a verse from the first canto, Narada Muni speaking, where he called it this deplorable material world. So here Prabhupada is saying, by the mercy of Guru, mercy of Krishna, one can come to the point of detesting it. And it's a fine line. Because the Jnanis, they also aspire or act in such a way that they're trying to exhibit detestment, repulsion for this material world. But that's not the solution in and of itself. Certainly trying to enjoy it, like the karmis, neither is that. They're thinking my body, my home, my family, my job, my fame, my riches, all my. The Jnanis, they try to turn away from that because it doesn't work, doesn't satisfy the living entities, so they think I will become God, I am God. It's all the same Mahamameti, it's all the same false ego, the ignorance that this verse and purport is dealing with, the complete illusion, such a dream. To think you could become God. I liked it in one purport, Srila Prabhupada was saying, if we were equal with God, then why would Krishna consistently say, surrender to me, serve me? If we were God, how did it come about that we're in Maya, we're in ignorance, and we're being kicked, covered and thrown by the potencies of Maya? You don't see that in Krishna's life, the manifested pastimes, because he's Adhokshaja, he's transcendental, he is the controller of this material energy. That's how he can deliver us, prapadyate, if we surrender. Bhavanam jamanamante gyanavam mam prapadyate. We have the same surrender as in, didn't we hear it in this verse? Yeah. Mameva ye prapadyante. Surrender. That's all Krishna is asking for. But because we're sleeping, because we're totally absorbed in the daydream, then the night dream, and the daydream, and the night dream, then we think, horrible. Why would I surrender? I want to become the master. I want to become the king. I want to become the prosperous person. I want, I like, I don't like. Icha dvesha samutena dvando mohena bharata. Like, desire, envy, dislike. These qualities keep us distant from Krishna and keep us from surrendering to Krishna. We have to learn that which is causing us the pain isn't the material energy itself, it's our identification with it in the sleeping mentality, the enjoying, controlling mentality of the dream. Srila Prabhupada. So it is incredible It's actually inconceivable. If, as Srila Prabhupada said, the living entity is never material, how in the world did we end up here? You know, the fact that we need to say a prayer for Maharaj's health. I mean, that condition of the body has nothing to do with spiritual life. In the spiritual world, you don't see disease, old age, what to speak of birth or death. Doesn't exist. That's the small print of, oh, you want to go and compete? You want to try and fill my shoes? Krishna asks. I've heard it several times. I've never read it. And I didn't hear it when I was a younger devotee. But Janani Prabhu says it. I've heard him say it a dozen times over the years. And Chatura says she heard it several times when she lived in the ashram, in the temple, etc. But they say, Srila Prabhupada says, that Krishna gives you 3 warnings. Srila Prabhupada similarly said the same kind of thing. I'll forgive you once, twice, 3 times. Boom. Then suffer. Learn the hard way. 3 times he warns, don't go there. Don't try and compete with me. You can't. You're not the enjoyer. This world is not ours. That's the funny thing of the Gyanis. I was saying the fine line. What can you renounce when you own nothing? The bank teller doesn't think that the money is his as he's counting it, taking it in, giving it out. It's not his at all. Just passing through his hands. Same way with us in this world. So the senses, all 5 of them, knowledge acquiring, all 5 of the, active senses, and then the mind. You know, all these experiences and desires and the objects, they're all passing through like water. They say if you can put water in your hand or sand in your hand, or just look at it, hold your hand up. You see any space in between your fingers? Anybody? Means money goes right through. You say it like it's a bad thing. It's not ours. Comes, it goes. That's the experience in this world. It's the dream. But in Krishna consciousness, when it's in our hands, what do we try and do with it? Offer to Krishna. It's His. Please accept it. And how can you accept it? How can you even be attracted to it? It's so paltry. Speaking of money, Madhava, the husband of the goddess of fortune, he shows in his pastimes as Gauranga, never had a problem with money. When it got tight in the household and there was nothing to cook, what would he do? He'd go out and he'd come back, and Mother Sachi never could figure it out, but he'd bring her some gold. Some gold coins. Where are you getting this? Yeah. Never lacked. Always had what he needed. What to speak of Krishna, 16,108 palaces. I mean, these days, I remember the lifestyle of the rich and famous. Somebody might have a dozen homes around the planet, and they might be mansions, and they might be able to maintain the bills, and they might have the super big yacht. Takes a lot of money to maintain a yacht and mansions around the world. It's nothing. What a cheap, pale imitation of Krishna. What a vain attempt to imitate Krishna. 16,108 palaces. I saw a picture the other day of inside one of the rooms at Mar-a-Lago. My God, it looked like King Louis what would be the number? A room from, Versailles or something. Man, opulence. Dripping with opulence. But it just comes and it goes. It's a dream. It's a bad dream. And yet how did we come under the influence when we have nothing to do with it and we are not material? Shukadeva Goswami answers that question by King Parikshit, 291, Srimad Bhagavatam. O King, unless one is influenced by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there's no meaning to the relationship of the pure soul and pure consciousness with the material body. That relationship is just like a dreamer's seeing his own body working. If not for the mercy of Krishna, it is impossible for the living entity to be in Maya. It's impossible because we're spirit soul. It's like oil and water. They don't mix. They never mix. They're always separate. Even though we're in this material world, we're always separate from it. And our condition is like when we dream and we see ourself, and Srila Prabhupada so often to give the example of the tiger screaming. Have you ever awakened from a dream because it was so horrific? I have. Seems so real, but person standing there watching you or here, awakened by your what? It's okay. Nothing there. It's a dream. But we're absorbed in it. So we're thinking I'm material. I'm this body. And that's why we consider that we have a connection with it. It's only by the mercy of Krishna fulfilling our desire. When the living entity comes out of Mahavishnu, his consciousness is pure. Pure consciousness is said to be Vasudeva, our Shuddha Sattva, Krishna consciousness. Lord Shiva has that wonderful verse. He speaks to his wife, I believe. But he says, I'm always engaged in offering obeisances to Lord Vasudeva and pure Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is always pure consciousness, in which the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Vasudeva, is revealed without any covering. That's from Bhagavatam 4:3-23. It's a wonderful verse and purport. Prabhupada explains this trance, this samadhi, this pure Shuddha Sattva consciousness, which is us. It is us. We actually have no control of it. Those who are lovers of Krishna, those who are in samadhi, they have no control of that. It's completely under the control of Krishna, because it's a manifestation of the Daivi Prakriti, his transcendental, spiritual, superior energy, and he controls her. He controls it. And one who is in his natural constitutional position, he thus is controlled by Krishna in everything that he does, says, and thinks. Jananivas Prabhu also likes making mention of, when you get to the end of the book, the author puts it all right there, telling you what it's about. And he quotes the last chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the last verse, the last purport, and last paragraph, and the last sentence specifically. The living entity in his original position is pure spirit. He's just like an atomic particle, the Supreme Spirit. Thus Lord Krishna may be compared to the sun and the living entities to sunshine. Because the living entities are the marginal energy of Krishna, they have a tendency to be in contact either with the material energy or with the spiritual energy. In other words, the living entity is situated between the two energies of the Lord. And because he belongs to the superior energy of the Lord, he has a particle of independence. Last sentence. By a proper use of that independence, he comes under the direct order of Krishna. Thus he attains his normal condition in the pleasure-giving potency. That's who we are. That's what we're meant to do. Simply engage in the service of Krishna. But when we come out of Mahavishnu's glance, that material energy is glittering. We're headed toward it in the glance. Rama Devi, Lord Mahavishnu's consort, is involved in the glance. Janivas fills it out a little bit. He says that the living entity sees, O Rama Devi. He's not taking notice of Mahavishnu or consort or master. He sees Rama Devi. And like a demon, Ravana wanting Sita, etc., the living entity thinks, yeah, he's given the chance. He's still in pure consciousness before he's been thrust into the material energy. Turn around, go back, come back home. But no, that's what I want. And then the first thing that gets slapped on the living entity, what's the first element he comes in contact with? False ego. And that's the mercy of Krishna. You want it, you ask for it, tatashtu, so be it. And that false ego is what propels us throughout every species of life. 8,400,000 species of life. For my own memory, I'm going to try 900,000 fish. There's 2 million vegetables. There's 1,100,000 insects and reptiles. 3 million beasts. 400,000 human beings, and I left one out. I forget what it was. Birds, 1 million. We've gone through them all. You want a little homework? Go to Rishabde's teachings where he's teaching his sons. And there he breaks down the evolution of the living entity. From Brahma on down, I believe. Or he could have gone from down to up, but I think it's down. He lists so many things. I mean, here he's just given a handful. But you know, you got the Charnas, Siddhas, Vidyadharas, you've got the ghosts, the Bhutas, the Jinn. You got the semi-gods, the demigods. You got those rishis in the higher planets. Going down, now start going down the elevator. Like we were talking about yesterday, you got the sons of Diti and Danu. Daityas, or the demons, the Rakshasas, Yakshasas. I mean, it's 400,000 species. That's just human. You know, we identify now as human. But we've been through it all. And it's always the false ego. And every time you're in whatever body, whether it's the worm, the insect, the tree, or whatever, you're thinking, this is nice. And you try your best to enjoy. Even the tree, I'm blocked, let me go this way, and you see the branch curved to go around to catch the sunshine. Or I take japa walks, and I never saw it before I lived here and started on my japa walks with these squirrels in the park where I live right behind and by the river from the ocean. They dig tunnels in the ground and live in the ground. When I grew up, I saw squirrels living in trees, but these guys, they burrow, live underground. And, they're always looking. They're so afraid. Here comes a runner. Here comes a bicycle. It's like, fear, eating, mating, sleeping, defending. Fearing, defending is the most prominent. We've discussed that. But simultaneously thinks, I got my little nut. I got my little insect. I got this and that. I got my family. I got it made. Such illusion. We're such fools to keep on trying again and again and again and again. There's some saying, and I forget what it is exactly, but the essence of it is you got to be pretty stupid to keep trying to achieve the same result through the same means when you continually fail at it. And yet that's who we are. I mean, just stupid. And then this pride. When I was thinking about all these different bodies, male, female eunuch, and that's what I chuckled about. Some people, have you heard this, Vijay? Some people are actually born with both male and female genitals. Did you know that? Now that's got to be confusing. And usually the parent, they make a decision right then and there. This is the way it's been. And some operation is there, and basically they're deciding, we want our child to be a male or female. That's mixed up karma, or as the common terminology. It's not politically correct, but I'm making my point. That's messed up. What kind of desire took you to that point? Now, the powers that be, they're trying their best to influence, and thus I will say exploit, confuse and thus exploit people. They're pushing all this gender mentality. I don't know all the initials. I'm an old chunk of coal, an idiot, LGBTQ. They keep going, and then they want people to be proud of it. And for those who are in the wrong body, I fold my hands and I say, I sympathize. You don't identify with that body, because I know how hard that is. That's got to be a very miserable condition. Not easy. But the powers that be are emphasizing, be proud of it. Stand up. In your face. I'm not a man, I'm a woman. I'm not a woman, I'm a man. I'm not either. I'm both. Whatever. That pride is the same kind of foolish pride that I've been hammering on when we think that I'm a vanaprastha, brahmachari, a male, a female, American, an old. It's all part of the dream. Prabhupada at the end of this purport says we should regret it. Not proud. Not proud. Pride is what causes the suffering. Embracing the false ego, reinforcing it. Okay, whatever you are, find the duties that are associated with that identity and engage in Krishna's service accordingly. And then be happy. That was Prabhupada's advice to a transgender devotee. Pick one identity and stick with it. Chant Hare Krishna. That's all it's about. That's the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Don't become proud. Knowledge in the mode of goodness is seeing the unity in everybody. They're pushing the diversity. They're pushing the conflict. Powers that be. It's never been so heated. People have never been so fearful and angry. It's just been stirred up purposely. We shouldn't fall victim to it, not in Krishna consciousness. Or this line, I couldn't help but it stood out to me. The people pushing it. They're the so-called scientists, philosophers, politicians, and socialists. Now, I'm not the kind of guy who goes on Vedabase and looks up. I respected my Prabhus who do. Do you know how many times you find the word mind in Srila Prabhupada's purports? Repeat it again. 20-something thousand? 29,000 times. Don't let it just be a factoid. The point was being made. It's important. Well, I'd ask any one of you who has that inclination, look up scientists. That's the favorable way of saying it. Or so-called scientists. And see what Prabhupada says every time he mentions it. I'm going to wager, I'm inclined to think that it's a bit disparagingly, just like he is in this. Their so-called plans of solving things are illusory. They have no absolute benefit. That's for dang sure. And generally, according to Prahlad Maharaj, the solution is worse than the problem. Time and time again. So when are we going to wake up to that? And like Kapila Dev says, watch out for the opposite sex. They'll suck you right into the false ego and the concept you can enjoy and exploit and control. Similarly, he says, don't associate with those who are attached to the opposite sex. That's actually a little bit more covert. So things start rolling based upon information given by so-called scientists, philosophers, philanthropists, and socialists, and then people buy into it. And majority does not necessarily mean it's in our best interest. Keep it founded on Shastra and Guru and Sadhus. Prabhupada says we should surrender with our intelligence. He doesn't say surrender your intelligence. Now, I know I did say the flip side of it the other day. Night is day, day is night. If Guru says, whatever he says, that's absolute surrender. But you come to that point of realizing whether your Guru has such realizations through study of Scripture and surrender and service. Then Krishna within the heart will guide you the more advanced you become. It's meant to be personal. And it's meant, when we take breakfast this morning, at a certain point, we're going to start feeling the nourishment and the satisfaction, and at some point we'll be satiated. Now in Krishna consciousness, it's a little bit of a mundane example because you're never satiated. You want more. Give me more. Aniyor. It's found in Krishna. It's found in us. The nectar of spiritual surrender and service to Krishna is that you're totally ecstatic, but because of the moods and the change and the constant variety, You're ever increasingly satisfied and just hankering for more service, more association of Krishna. Whereas here, never satisfied. At some point, we got to become convinced it's not working. And the worst thing, I'm going to say it because I want to go further, the worst thing for the striving sadhaka is when he tries to mix the two. You were talking about becoming comfortable in Krishna consciousness. I got my sadhana going, and I got a little sense gratification going. That's the worst enemy of the living entity, Prabhupada says. That so-called sensation of pleasure that your mind is telling you, yeah. It's our worst enemy, because it's the hook that forces us to suffer repeatedly, and if we don't become free by the grace of someone cutting the tackle wire and taking the hook out of our mouth, if the Guru and Vaishnavas don't save us with their directions, their association, their guidance and service, then life after life, when will it stop? It won't ever, as long as we don't take advantage seriously with what's being offered. At least we should look at it in that way. Ever is a strong word, but we should feel like that. I want to get off. I've been going on since time immemorial. Might as well be forever. Krishna is so kind. Prabhupada uses the example that if you're going to play the part of the king in a play, you got to feel the part of a king. You have to feel like a king. You have to feel courageous, proud. All that goes with the king. You can't think, Prabhupada uses the example, you can't think that he said another devotee's name, but you can't think you're Balaram Das and then play the part of a king very nicely, because you're hedging. You got to totally throw yourself into it. And Krishna allows. Yeah, you're a king. Yeah, you're a rich man. Yeah, whatever it may be. That's his kindness. He's the director pushing us, allowing us through his modes of nature, fulfilling our desires because of the false ego, and therefore we pull it off to some degree. We convince ourselves, we convince others. All a dream. All a dream. But when Krishna sees that we become sincere and want to turn around and run the other way towards him, then that aponam turns into jnana and smriti. Then we can remember. Then the knowledge comes, and it just increases to the degree we surrender. This is necessary. I want to read this because I can't say it because of lack of realization. I wish I could. But Prabhupada, let's see. Stressing the dream. Okay. Our contact with matter is just like a dream. We are not fallen. How's that for a Zen one-liner? You're not fallen. I feel pretty fallen. But you're not fallen. Therefore, at any moment, we can revive our Krishna consciousness. We can become liberated as soon as we understand I have nothing to do with matter. I'm simply Krishna's eternal servant. We wake up from the dream. Actually, we are not fallen. We cannot be fallen. Actually, same example, there's no tiger, it's dreaming. We're not fallen. We can simply give up that illusory condition at any moment. That's encouraging. Now, it's not like the neophyte cheating Christians. I accepted Jesus, I'm saved, and my work's done. It's not like the cheating devotees. I'm initiated, second initiated, I got my position, my service, etc. Basically, I can coast. I'm done. No. We have to offer sincerely, Krishna, I'm yours. Please protect me. Please accept me. Whatever I have, please. But then we have to hear these verses, associate with each other, chant as best we can, conscientiously. That's the essence of the program given by Lord Chaitanya, guilelessly, I was asking Dravida, what does that guile mean? It means hypocritical. Bhakti Vinod Thakur, he prays, when will I guilelessly chant on the banks of the Ganga, Gauranga, Nityananda, not caring what people think, but calling out to the Lord, help me, save me. Engaging to the best of our ability just to please Krishna. We don't need anything in return. However you want to deal with us, we're your servant. I trust you. The more we surrender explicitly, we can trust in the Lord. That development of Shraddha on up to the highest stage, the closest intimate stage of praying. Whatever stage we're at, we try to pray for more and more mercy. We can subdue the materialistic activities of our senses and mind. We have that God-given gift in the human form of life. But the result is up to Krishna. His mercy is absolutely necessary. Those who are surrendering day after day after day after day and still not getting Krishna, I haven't seen Krishna. I want to see Krishna. I'm not demanding to see you, but Prabhupada says every pure Vaishnava wants to see Krishna. He wants Krishna's association. That's what love means. So what do you do when you're trying your best day in, day out, and that hasn't happened? What do you do? Well, you keep trying, one, and two, at some point you cry. You come to the point where you realize, I can't do it. It's not in my power. Only if Krishna deems that if he so wills, that he can give himself, will give himself. So that's our program. I'll read one purport, a little section of it, which kind of sums it up of, so what to do. Is this the right book? Wrong book? Right book. This is the secret of success. After being initiated and receiving the orders of the spiritual master, the disciple should unhesitatingly think about the instructions or orders of the spiritual master and should not allow himself to be disturbed by anything else. This is the verdict of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who, while explaining a verse of Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasayatmika Buddhir Ekaha Kuranandana, points out that the order of the spiritual master is the life substance of the disciple. The disciple should not consider whether he's going back home, back to Godhead. His first business should be to execute the order of his spiritual master. Thus, the disciple should always meditate on the order of the spiritual master, and that is perfectional meditation. Not only should he meditate upon that order, but he should find out the means by which he can perfectly worship and execute it. Become Krishna conscious, share Krishna consciousness. That's basically the essence of the instructions. That's what we pray for the strength to do, the association to be fortified to do. Are there any questions or comments? Let's hope we get a winner today. That crackly mic. I liked it.
Do you think you could tell me where that purport you just read was from, please?
Yeah.
Because that was really nice, important.
I just lost it.
That's right.
But give me 1 second.
All right.
It's right here.
Yeah, I have a question too, but...
Okay, let's do this first, because this will get it out of the way. Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, same book we're studying, 24th chapter, 15. It's a purport by Lord Shiva. Okay. And I believe 24 the Pracheta.
4:24:15.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great verse.
15.
The Prachetas meditated upon Lord Shiva's instructions and followed them. They made them their life. They saw Krishna.
So
4:25:15.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was reading the other day this article from that same Chaitanya Charan Prabhu he wrote. It's
Which Charan?
Chaitanya Charani writes a lot for Bhakti Godhead.
Okay.
Anyways, he was writing an article about Ramchandra and Ravana, and kind of what we can learn from their whole the battle and Ramchandra killing Ravana. But one thing, he had this lust bites the dust. In dust, he the D standing for something, U, S, T, it all standing for something. But he was saying how determination. D stands for determination, U for understanding, S for surrender or something. But specifically determination I'm asking about. And he said that, people that think, oh, well, how can I ever become Krishna conscious? It takes a lot of determination to do that. And then he's making the point, well, people are already determined. They're determined to do something. And he was saying we have to take the determination to be in Maya, to take the determination to enjoy this material world, and then transfer that and direct it towards Krishna. And I was thinking about like Bilvamangala Thakur. He was, so attached to his Chintamani, but she said if you had the same attachment, direct it towards Krishna, you'd be a pure devotee. So maybe you could comment on that, a little bit.
On the need for determination?
Yeah, the need for determination and
how to get determined?
Yeah.
To become determined? I liked how your spiritual master answered the first line he gave on the answer. So the first time I'll use it, I'm giving him credit. It's only by your mercy, the inspiration of such a nice question, that I might be able to say something. That's proper Krishna consciousness. I find that the instructions that Srila Prabhupada gives about stay in the association of the devotees, you hear, you chant, following the instructions of the spiritual master, in the association of the devotees. I have a brother-in-law. He's been riding a bicycle, been in races and all that thing, Tour de France kind of thing, for decades. And, there's the principle. One guy gets credit of being the winner, but to have become the winner, there's a whole team of them. And often the other person, one person's going to the head because they're breaking this, they're working the hardest because they're going against the wind. And like a flock of birds, the one at the front's doing the most work, and the others are benefiting because they're in the tailwind. They're catching the momentum of the ones working harder before them. So devotional association is like that. We're meant to associate with as advanced devotees as we can, and to take advantage. They got it, and if we associate with them, we'll catch it. It'd be so easy to use the analogy of a disease. If you're in the presence of someone who has an infectious disease, it's quite likely you'll catch it. We want to catch this utsahan, this determination. And there's all that we can do on our own, if we're praying for it, working on it, staying focused. It's when we lose sight of the goal, is I find when we waver in our determination. We constantly have to be thinking, what do you want? What's today meant for? Or the other way of saying that, what happens if you leave today? I get to say, we talk about auspicious leaving. Vijay Prabhu often has so many wonderful stories of book distribution. Did everybody hear about the Prabhu, Shyamasundar Jagannath, wasn't it? He gave class, just like I'm giving class. He said, I have to wrap it up because I have a train to catch. So he took one question, then he wrapped it up. Then he went home and had a massive heart attack. Left his body. Took him to the hospital. This was in Mayapur, disciple Jaipatak. Huh? Yeah, I know the Prabhu. Wonderful devotee. He was the one I sent out an email for. Can somebody help him out here? Wonderful devotee. And knowing that he left his body right after class, then I listened to the class. It was a fantastic class. You don't know. Just nobody knows. It's the day. How would you live this day if you knew this is the day? Final exam, you're going to leave. How would you behave? How would you think? What would your desire be? Keep that mentality. It helps with the seriousness and the determination. And then all the aids are there, association with devotees, etc. I'm going to throw this in because if one is transcendently absorbed in Krishna's service, then his next body will be transcendental, spiritual, not material. Therefore, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the best process for successfully changing one's state of being at the end of one's life. And this is the line that really caught me. Current events influencing what catches my eyes a lot of times. The unalloyed devotees of the Supreme Lord who are totally surrendered souls do not care when they leave their bodies or by what method. They leave everything in Krishna's hands and so easily and happily return to Godhead. Now, at least we can understand we're Guru's property, we're his servant. Take it up a notch, we're his slave, sold out, surrendered disciple. However, whatever he sees fit for us, we'll accept. They want us to go back home to Godhead, are we desiring? So that's a little bit of a dance around how you become determined, but those are things that I think. You know, I do. I think about, is this the day? I do that quite often. It's in part of the meditation I do before starting the day. And then, I'm not here a lot, but I watch and I hear you Prabhus and take shelter and solace, inspiration from your words and knowing, like, part of it I was thinking, devotionals before I heard the scores for yesterday, I was thinking, don't let, anything stop us from desiring to preach. Nobody or nothing can stop the determined devotee from spreading Krishna consciousness, sharing Krishna consciousness, certainly practicing Krishna consciousness. Then when I heard yesterday's scores, I was thinking, boy, I don't really have to say that. These Prabhus are fired up. And that's what we do. We hang out with devotees who are fired up. Catch the fever and transform it into whatever your service is. So that's a rambling long enough. Would you like to contribute to the thought? Did that have some value? Okay. Bernard, do you know Bernard? Bhakti Glenn? Gietano? He says, I think that's my cousin Glenn behind the yellow beanie. Who's got the yellow beanie? Raise your hand. Let him see you. No, that's Ramapati in the yellow beanie, but right behind him.
Yeah, that's your cousin Glenn. That's true.
Hare Krishna.
You have a cousin Glenn?
Bernard, yeah. So anyway, I'm sure he is happy to see a devotee, to your eternal credit. My friends, my Prabhus, thank you for your patience, your association, your wonderful examples of service. Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki. God dang this.